I was running late that morning, having promised my son Max that I'd drop him off at the bus stop instead of making him walk. As we pulled up to the corner, my heart stopped. There was my 12-year-old, shoulders hunched, backpack clutched protectively against his chest, while a middle-aged woman in a crisp pantsuit loomed over him, her manicured finger jabbing the air inches from his face. Even from 50 feet away, I could see Max's eyes wide with distress. "I've never seen you here before," the woman was saying, her voice carrying across the quiet morning air. "This is a private neighborhood bus stop. I need to see your proof of residence right now, or I'm calling security." Several other parents and children stood nearby, their discomfort evident, but no one intervened. I quickly pulled my unmarked police car to the curb, careful not to draw attention to the government plates. We'd only moved to Oak Ridge Estates 3 weeks ago, and I'd been intentional about keeping my position quiet. Being the police chief in a small town like Ridgemont meant everyone treated you differently, and I wanted Max to have as normal a childhood as possible after losing his mom 2 years ago. I stepped out of my car just as the woman's voice rose another octave. "Do you understand what trespassing means, young man? I am the HOA president, and I have every right to question suspicious individuals in our community." Max's voice was barely audible. "I live here. My dad and I moved in on Maple Drive." The woman, who I would soon learn was Karen Whitfield, the infamous head of the Homeowners Association Community Standards Committee, scoffed loudly. "That's exactly what someone who doesn't belong would say. Maple Drive? Really? Which house number? Who owned it before? Why haven't I seen your parents at any community meetings?" I approached slowly, keeping my voice calm and measured, the way I'd learned to do over 20 years in law enforcement. "Excuse me, is there a problem here?" Karen turned to me with a look that could only be described as condescending superiority. She was in her late 40s with an expensive blonde bob and the kind of outfit that screamed, "I'd like to speak to the manager." The gold HOA president pin on her lapel gleamed in the morning sunlight. "I'm handling a situation here," she said dismissively, barely sparing me a glance. "This child claims to live in our neighborhood, but I've never seen him before, and I know everyone who belongs here. We've had issues with non-residents trying to use our private amenities." Max looked at me, relief washing over his face. "Dad!" Karen's eyebrows shot up, and she turned from my son to me, recalibrating her approach, but not backing down. "Oh, you're his father." Well, as I was explaining, as president of the Homeowners Association, it's my responsibility to ensure neighborhood security. We have strict protocols about who can use the bus stop. I'll need to see your community ID card. The other parents were watching now, some with discomfort, others with what looked like resignation. I could tell this wasn't Karen's first power trip. One mother caught my eye and gave me an apologetic look. "Ma'am," I said calmly, "my son and I moved into 478 Maple Drive 3 weeks ago, the Harrison place. We're registered residents, and Max has every right to be at this bus stop." Karen crossed her arms, her red-painted fingernails tapping impatiently against her designer handbag. "Everyone knows the community bylaws require new residents to check in with the HOA office and receive proper identification before using community facilities. The bus stop is included in those facilities. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them." She said this last part with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I placed a reassuring hand on Max's shoulder. "Go wait in the car for a minute, buddy. The bus will be here soon, but I need to sort this out." Once Max was safely in the car, I turned back to Karen. This wasn't our first run-in with the HOA. In the short time we'd lived there, I'd already received notices about our mailbox being 2 inches too low, the wrong shade of beige on our window trim, and having my recycling bin visible from the street for more than 4 hours after collection. "Ms. Whitfield, is it?" I asked, though I knew very well who she was from the community welcome packet she'd personally delivered, along with a 3-page list of violations needing immediate attention. That's right. Karen Whitfield, HOA president for 7 consecutive terms. Her chest puffed out slightly with pride. Well, Ms. Whitfield, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Questioning a minor without parental consent crosses several boundaries, legal and ethical. My son was clearly distressed by your approach, Karen huffed dismissively. I have authority from the association board to question anyone on community property. It's for everyone's safety. We've had incidents of vandalism, and the board voted unanimously to implement stricter security measures. If your son had proper identification, there wouldn't have been an issue. Something in her self-righteous tone made me decide it was time to drop the polite neighbor act. I reached into my jacket and pulled out my badge, keeping it low enough that the other children wouldn't notice, but high enough that Karen could clearly see it. Chief Thomas Reynolds, Ridgemont Police Department. I believe you were just harassing my 12-year-old son while he was waiting for a school bus, which is not only against HOA regulations but could constitute intimidation of a minor under state law. The change in Karen's demeanor was instant and almost comical. Her face, previously flushed with the power of her position, drained of color. Her mouth opened and closed several times before any sound emerged. Chief? I had no idea you were— This is just a misunderstanding, she stammered, her voice suddenly an octave higher. I was simply doing my duty as HOA president to ensure community safety. If someone had told me who you were— That's the problem, Ms. Whitfield, I interrupted, keeping my voice low and even. You shouldn't need to know that I'm the police chief to treat a child with basic decency and respect. Any child, regardless of who their parent is, deserves better than to be publicly interrogated and accused of trespassing on their way to school. The school bus was approaching in the distance, and I motioned for Max to come back. Karen was still trying to regain her composure, her earlier confidence evaporating under the stares of the other parents who were no longer pretending not to watch. I'll be filing an official report about this incident, I continued, not as a resident, but as a law enforcement officer concerned about the harassment of minors in this community. I'd also like to see the HOA bylaw that grants you authority to interrogate children without parental presence. I suspect your board's legal counsel would be very interested in reviewing that particular policy. One of the other parents, a woman who had been silently watching, stepped forward. She did the same thing to my daughter last month, she said. Accused her of bringing a friend from outside the neighborhood and threatened to fine us. We've been afraid to speak up because Karen controls the violation committee. Another parent nodded. She had my landscaping company banned from the neighborhood because they parked their truck in my driveway for too long. Cost me an extra $1,000 to find someone new. Karen's face had turned from white to red again, but this time from humiliation rather than authority. This is ridiculous. I've devoted 8 years to keeping this community safe and maintaining our property values. You have no idea what would happen if we didn't have proper standards and enforcement. The bus pulled up, and I gave Max a quick hug. Have a good day at school, buddy. Don't worry about any of this. After the children had boarded, I turned back to Karen, who was now clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Ms. Whitfield, I expect to see you at the police station this afternoon to give a formal statement about your practice of questioning minors. 3 o'clock would work well, and I'll be attending the next HOA meeting to discuss community security protocols that don't involve intimidating children. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. You can't possibly think this warrants police involvement. I was doing my job. Harassment isn't anyone's job, I replied firmly, and targeting children crosses a line that goes beyond HOA regulations. In fact, your actions this morning could potentially result in charges of intimidation, harassment, and impersonating a security official, which carries a fine of up to $5,000 and possible jail time in this state. The color drained from Karen's face once again, and for the first time since I'd encountered her, she was completely speechless. The other parents were openly staring now, some with barely concealed satisfaction. Karen's reign of terror had clearly affected more families than just mine. 1 week later, a community-wide email announced that Karen Whitfield had regretfully stepped down from her position as HOA president and a committee CIHA,